The links for the Odyssey or the Rumble, or to join the channel here on the various other subscriber type of links. So Hogwarts Legacy is dangerous. J.K. Rowling is a threat to our democracy, or like whatever. The soy community on Twitter is very upset about Hogwarts Legacy, and it's coming from a certain segment of the community that is pretending to say, "Oh, this game looks so horrible," and then they always follow up with an LMAO. It's kind of inappropriate because you say the letters out loud. It means laughing their butt off, right? It's like, that doesn't make sense. Laughing out loud, laughing your butt off. You just made a simple statement. You're not really laughing out. Oh, this game looks like trash. Laughing your butt off. How that doesn't. So you just don't have to buy it. Why are you so worked up about this Hogwarts game that everyone else is very much into playing? Oh no, no reason, no reason. Looks at their pronouns and bio. So the soy community is upset about Hogwarts Legacy. They think it's basically a war crime, but there are deeper issues behind the game and trying to get people to reject the game and reject J.K. Rowling, because the first layer, if the deeper issue is the BLT issues, obviously, but it's also about sexes having their own spaces. And the issue under that is the fundamental schism between the left and the right. The idea of separate spaces is deeper and more important because it's saying that people aren't fungible, which loosely is a globalist belief that people are fungible and you can just replace them willy nilly and things will be exactly the same. And it puts feminists who are more on the left into not exactly a right wing position, but into a why is the game plot twist? It's not controversial, into a nationalist position, which is probably changing the way they view themselves and their policies. They're realizing that even as less of center feminists, they have to set limits. They have to say, well, we are these things, these concepts. We're women. This is a line around us. There is this concept of us. Inside the circle is us, females. And outside is not us. And there's that segment on Twitter who they don't have a counter argument to a lot of this stuff, so they have to deflect in ad hominem. When you see it, it's really obvious, and you point it out. They just further deflect in ad hominem. You say like this is a group for this is a group for females, and like we're not using your gender definition. We're using the biological sexes. These are our feelings. You're not in this group. And it's immediate. Well, why do you even care, bigot? But you're not addressing the argument. It has to be a deflection because you don't like. There is no way to address a logical argument with an appeal to emotion. It's kind of like the beginning history of property law. Humans have to create a set of rules to live together and have, I mean the first story in if you get a property law book, it's like a deer, somebody shoots a deer and it wanders onto someone else's property, and then it's like, okay, well, we have to create a set of laws, and they have to be somewhat logical. They don't have to be perfect because there's no such thing as a perfect set of laws. It's just they have to be, everyone has to know them, and they have to know, like, okay, this is what happens when you shoot a deer and it goes, and there's an arrow in it, belongs to somebody else, and it goes on someone else's property. You got to create this set of laws to have a functioning society. And for feminists, usually it was them, a collection of mostly left of center women who were pushing against the right wing conservatives. So this changes everything. Now they find themselves in conflict with further left wing people. So they're the relative right wing. They're not the cutting edge anymore. They're trying to conserve the idea of biological sex, but also some nationalist concepts and values because they're creating and enforcing at least, I was going to say borders, but at least, I don't know, figurative ones. They're saying, well, I guess they're real ones. They're sexual borders. They're saying that men are not welcome in their spaces. They're creating rules and structure. And the whole thing is, which is great, the whole thing is fascinating to me to see an organization have to shift and re-examine itself. The right does it also as we move further to the right, because we realize that the moderate right is, of course, just moving to the left. If you remember that, the Groypers asking Charlie Kirk and that guy on stage about their conservative values that had just been presented with no discussion. And suddenly, the conservatives were flying the rainbow flag, and other conservatives were looking around like, wait, are these the conservative values now? Because, like, can we have a discussion about this? Like, no discussion. It's just presented as a conclusion. It's like, oh, that's weird. It feels like you're that doesn't really feel like the way we want to go ahead with things. It's like, well, these are the Charlie Kirk neocons. Anyway, but for the female feminists, I don't know what else to call them. The thing is, calling them TERFs is not really fair because it's a pejorative, and it's not how they would define themselves because they're not. I don't think radical is a that like that is definitely used as a pejorative. I guess you could call them TEFs because they'd be trans exclusionary feminists, but to call them radical isn't fair. You got to kind of define people by their. It'd be like calling pro-choice people pro-death people. It's like, well, that's not their self-definition. That's used as a pejorative also. The thing is, they've been dragged to a line in the sand, and they have to be the ones to impose the rules and to be the authoritarians. They have to be the parents in the situation and come up with, I don't know, a concept of discretion. I feel like there's probably a branch of philosophy that discusses this. But, like a lot of this stuff is like you don't hear other people talking about it. So it's like you have to just kind of put it out there. A concept of nationalism, of bodily and group autonomy. They're saying we are this group. We're these defined characteristics. You're not us. You're not welcome into our space, into our group. It's tribal, and it's exciting to see this growth of tribalism, even if it's coming from the left wing. Because, I mean, it's like opening the door to a line of questioning or something like that. You're putting all this stuff on the table, and then suddenly you can't back away from it because you justified it. You gave it validity by using it, because you're seeing in it what was a mostly left-wing group, the feminist group, and it's good to see this growing tribalism to normalize the concept of people self-organizing. I'd probably get a strike. To see what was to people see people self-organizing along tribal lines, and to normalize the concept of becoming nationalists, of imposing limits, and of exclusion. And exclusion, as used by the globalists, is not in keeping with their values for other people. Diversity, inclusion, and equity, which is, of course, all cancer and hypocritical. Like, don't be afraid to call these cancerous ideas just globalist cancer, because they usually want you to open your doors to them, but they don't want to open their doors to you. It's not inclusion, it's invasion, subversion, and conquest. It's how SJWs operate, which is why you absolutely have to gatekeep these filthy parasites out. Not all things are for all people, and that should be just a, oh, no, everything has to be, you need diversity. No, we don't value that. We don't value that for our group. We have diversity of thought, but even in all groups, it's like you don't have even true diversity of thought in all groups, because that might be contrary to the group. If the group has an ideology, it's like, well, this is the dogma, this is the core ideology of the group, this set of beliefs. Or some like some religious groups, like, well, you could be, Christian, Muslim, Satire, or some pagan, whatever. It's like, this is the core of the group. It's like, no, we don't even value diversity of thought, because you have to follow these core tenets, and there's going to be argument within the group. But it's like, this is the branch of this group. There's you have to abide by this dogma, otherwise that's the whole point of the group. Diversity destroys that, and people just keep repeating this adage of, oh, diversity. It's like, well, it's not always a positive if it destroys the group, and they hear that and they get triggered. It's like, yeah, we're gonna have to have some triggering events. And anyway, the thing is, now it's interesting to see this is coming from the left. It's a shift to see that the left-wing feminist women suddenly find themselves erecting these fences to keep out people who don't belong in their spaces. It's just I don't know, hoisted by their own petard, whatever the phrase is, which is fine because people are tribal. This recent globalist push is doing something to people that they don't want. You're forcing people together that have interests adverse to each other, to force two different, like, religious groups. Oh, you guys need to diversify yourselves. Like, one group is, I don't know, Norse mythology based, and the other group is Mediterranean mythology based, or Roman or Greek or something. It's like, well, why would we want to diversify ourselves with groups that have different interests, different belief systems, different values? That doesn't make sense. You're just like, you're de facto presenting this concept of diversity as a positive thing, but you haven't shown your argument. And we're clearly saying, like, oh no, here it's actually a negative thing. We're showing our argument. And it's a lot of stuff with this globalism, because they're using the media and the government schools to present all this stuff as a fait accompli of all the BLT, the rainbow stuff. And you go, oh no, these are actually negative things, and here's why. It's like, well, you're not welcome to have those discussions, because so You don't value diversity of thought after all. It's like, nope, not in these schools, not in these left wing places. But you got to point all this stuff out, and it's kind of an accelerationist concept of the left too. That's why I like support the trans groups. Oh, absolutely, because it forces what was a left wing group into having right wing values. Because otherwise they just have to acquiesce to every little thing that's a left wing value, and they go further and further left into this the territory of the absurd is where you are now. And I mean, there's one thing else that's coming up on the horizon, dealing with I'll say the age of majority, which you're starting to see now with the kids stuff. That's on the horizon. Something else is coming up along those lines, and you're gonna. It's good that people are realizing that this pendulum is just going to keep swinging way beyond absurdity into like atrocities until you start putting your foot down. And it's like you want to force the left wing. You don't want to be the right wing pressure release valve. Like when you have left wing protests in cities or in Seattle and Washington, California and stuff, it's better that a right wing group like a Kyle Rittenhouse doesn't get involved, because you have a left wing people, Antifa, BLM marching, burning down buildings, hurting people. It's just unrelated, like burning parking lots. It's like, we fought capitalism. It's like, you fought a small business, but it's the left wing has to kind of stew in their own juices. And if you go there and you're one of these PB groups, then you're the focus, you're the pressure release valve. Everyone can shift. The left wing can shift all their hatred to you. It's like you just stay out of it and let them do it to themselves. And it's like this with what's going on with these the women versus the further left BLT group is just accelerated until the feminists themselves have to suddenly put their foot down and go, oh, we need to start taking up these nationalist values. And they were the first to say, oh, these aren't nationalist values, these are just, and then they define it. It's like, yeah, those are what we're talking about, all the right to exclude people who are not us, to have agency, to have bodily autonomy and organizational autonomy. And it's like they will bend over backwards to say, oh, we're not like you, we're excluding these people because they're not like us. Yeah, that's what everyone does. It's like you can just stop with the hypocrisy. Anyway, I thought this was interesting because I think it has much deeper. It's I don't know how long am I? 12 minutes. Okay, it's like with the Eliza Blue thing. And maybe I'll do a video on that. It feels like the left is in a tricky position because they're hashtag believe all women, and she's not exactly on the left or the right, and they feel like, oh, she manipulated Elon Musk, so that's where they put the focus on Elon Musk. He's not exactly on the right either, and the left knows that, but they're trying to frame it as something to do with Elon Musk. But they're in this position, oh, we have to believe all women, but not Eliza Blue. And then it also puts the left in like, the left is in this position now where protecting kids is a far right wing dog whistle. It's a far right wing value. And if I was on the left, I would be taking that back immediately. But if I was on the left, if I was in the BLT community, I would be cutting loose the 1% on the far left and say, just they're going to have to go their own ways. Their values are not ours. We need to go back to the center. Otherwise, they're going to drag us further to the left. But I'm in that regard, I'm not on the left. I want them to accelerate and just tear themselves apart. So that's why I'm totally supporting the trans issue. By all means, more women in sports. Won't that ruin women's sports? It will force them to self-correct women's sports if they wish to do so. Otherwise, yes, it will. You'll have sports. It's like at that point, why even have biological divisions in sports? And absolutely, I totally agree with that. Like, are high school and college sports important? No, not really. Not in the greater scheme of things. I mean, if ultimately you believe that women should be at home raising kids and like take care of the family, then you accelerate all this stuff because you don't want women in college in the first place, right? Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for the recent support on Subscribe Star, Vegan, Ireland, and everyone else over there, Frog. And I'll see you guys all next episode.